There are people who will hurt you once and genuinely regret it. And there are people who hurt you repeatedly, watch you break, and then expect you to forgive them as if your pain never mattered. The difference is not always in the mistake itself. The difference is in the intention, the pattern, and what they do after they have wounded you. Listen carefully. Forgiveness is not the same as allowing someone to hurt you again. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not to hate someone, not to seek revenge, and not even to explain yourself. Sometimes you simply decide that this person will no longer have access to the parts of you they once had the privilege of touching. Because your life is shaped not only by the people you love, but also by the boundaries you refuse to abandon. There are 6 behaviors you should never excuse simply because you have a soft heart. 6 signs that tell you a person is not making a mistake. They are revealing their character. The first is when someone repeatedly betrays your trust and then expects you to forget it. A mistake can happen once, but when betrayal becomes a pattern, forgiveness without boundaries becomes an invitation. Trust is not something you owe anyone. It is something they must earn through consistent actions. The second is when someone deliberately humiliates, manipulates, or destroys your confidence. A person who constantly makes you feel small does not deserve unlimited access to your mind. Never confuse their ability to make you doubt yourself with your lack of worth. The third is when someone uses your kindness against you. You help them, support them, forgive them, and stand beside them, and they begin to believe that your kindness means you have no limits. Remember this, being compassionate does not mean being available for exploitation. The fourth is when someone hurts you and refuses to take responsibility. Watch their response when you confront them. Do they acknowledge what they did, or do they immediately blame you? A mature person can say, "I was wrong." A manipulative person says, "You made me do it." The fifth is when someone repeatedly violates your boundaries after you have clearly communicated them. If you say no and they continue pushing, your words are not being misunderstood, they are being ignored. And when someone repeatedly ignores your boundaries, distance may become more necessary than another conversation. And the sixth is perhaps the most dangerous, when someone intentionally harms you and then returns only when they need something from you. They disappear when you need them, return when they need you, and expect your heart to remain exactly where they left it. Do not allow your loneliness to make you reopen a door that your wisdom closed. But understand something important. This message is not teaching you to become bitter. It is teaching you to become discerning. Forgiveness can free your heart from anger, but forgiveness does not require reconciliation. You can release hatred without restoring trust. You can wish someone well while choosing to walk away. You can understand someone's pain without volunteering to become the place where they continue to release it. Your peace has value. Your trust has value. Your presence has value. And when someone repeatedly demonstrates that they do not respect those things, you do not need to punish them. You simply need to stop giving them access. Because sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is not saying, "I forgive you." It is saying, "I have learned from what happened, and I will not allow it to happen again." Stay until the end, because these 6 signs may change the way you look at forgiveness, boundaries, and the people you allow into your life. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: you do not become stronger by forgiving everyone who hurts you. You become stronger when you learn who deserves another chance and who deserves nothing more than your distance. There is a moment in life when you must stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and begin asking a more important question: what am I willing to accept from this person from now on? This change in thinking is the beginning of wisdom, because when someone hurts you, your first reaction may be anger, sadness, disappointment, or confusion. You may search for explanations. You may remember all the good things they once did and use those memories to justify what they are doing now. You may tell yourself, perhaps they did not mean it, or maybe they will change. But when the same behavior continues again and again, you must learn to look at actions rather than promises.
One mistake does not always reveal a person's character.
People are imperfect. People lose their temper. People make poor decisions. People sometimes hurt others without fully understanding the consequences of their actions. But there is a great difference between someone who makes a mistake and someone who repeatedly chooses the same harmful behavior. A mistake followed by genuine responsibility can become a lesson. A pattern followed by excuses becomes a warning. This is why you must learn to recognize the 6 behaviors that should never become normal in your life. The first is repeated betrayal. Trust is fragile. It takes time to build and only a moment to damage. When someone breaks your trust once, you may choose to forgive them. But if they continue betraying you after knowing exactly how deeply it affects you, you must stop looking at their words and start looking at their pattern. A person who repeatedly breaks your trust is teaching you something about who they are. The second behavior is deliberate humiliation. Pay attention to people who constantly make jokes at your expense, expose your weaknesses, embarrass you in front of others, or make you feel inferior so they can feel powerful. There is a difference between friendly humor and intentional disrespect. Someone who cares about you does not need to destroy your confidence to feel important. If a person repeatedly makes you feel small, do not spend your entire life trying to prove your worth to them. Your worth was never determined by their opinion. The third behavior is manipulation. Manipulation often does not arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes through guilt, sometimes through silence, sometimes through emotional pressure. A person may make you feel responsible for their behavior while avoiding responsibility for their own actions. They may twist your words, deny what happened, or make you question your own judgment. When this happens repeatedly, you must become still enough to observe the pattern. You do not need to argue with every manipulation. Sometimes awareness is more powerful than confrontation. The fourth behavior is exploiting your kindness. There are people who appreciate your generosity, and there are people who study it so they can use it. You help them once, and they expect it again. You forgive them once, and they assume there will never be consequences. You are always available, so they stop appreciating your presence. Remember that kindness without boundaries can become self-neglect. You can have a compassionate heart while still having a firm boundary. You can help someone without allowing them to consume you. The fifth behavior is refusing responsibility. Watch carefully what happens when someone is confronted with the consequences of their actions. Do they become quiet, reflect, and acknowledge their mistake? Or do they immediately blame you, circumstances, other people, or their past? A person who truly wants to change does not spend all their energy defending their behavior. They examine it. They accept the discomfort of accountability. They understand that an apology means very little when the same behavior continues. The sixth behavior is repeated violation of your boundaries. When you clearly say, "This hurts me," and someone continues doing it, the message is no longer unclear. When you say, "I cannot accept this," and they continue, you must listen to what their actions are telling you. A boundary is not a threat. It is a decision about what you will and will not participate in. You cannot control another person's behavior, but you can control how much access they have to your life. And this is where many people become confused about forgiveness. They think being a good person means tolerating everything. They believe that having a peaceful heart means keeping everyone close. But peace does not mean allowing chaos to remain at your doorstep. Compassion does not require you to remain available to someone who repeatedly harms you. You can understand someone and still walk away from them. You can release anger and still refuse to trust them again. You can wish someone healing without allowing them to continue hurting you. This is not hatred. This is discernment. Do not allow your desire to be a good person to become an excuse for abandoning yourself. There comes a point when the lesson is no longer about what someone did to you. The lesson becomes about whether you have the courage to protect yourself after you have understood the pattern. People will reveal themselves through repetition. Watch what they do when they are angry. Watch what they do when they have power. Watch what they do when you say no. Watch how they behave when they no longer need anything from you. Watch whether their apology produces change. Because words can be carefully chosen, Actions are harder to disguise, and when you begin observing instead of desperately believing, you become much harder to manipulate. You stop chasing explanations from people who have already given you the answer through their behavior. You stop asking someone to respect a boundary they have already shown they do not respect. You stop confusing potential with reality. The strongest person is not the person who never gets hurt. The strongest person is the one who learns from pain without allowing pain to destroy their character. They do not become cruel because someone treated them cruelly. They become wiser. They become quieter. They become more selective about where they place their trust. Not everyone deserves access to your heart simply because they know how to ask for forgiveness. Some people deserve forgiveness from a distance. Some lessons are meant to be remembered, not repeated. And sometimes the most peaceful sentence you can say to yourself is this: I understand what happened. I accept that it happened. I have learned from it. And I will not allow the same pattern to become my future. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Many people believe that if they forgive someone, they must welcome that person back into their life. They believe they must trust again, speak again, spend time together again, and pretend that nothing happened. But forgiveness does not require any of these things. Forgiveness and access are two different decisions. One is about what you carry inside your heart. The other is about who you allow into your life. You can forgive someone and still choose distance. You can release your anger without restoring the relationship. You can stop wishing for revenge without giving that person another opportunity to hurt you. This distinction is important because sometimes people use the idea of forgiveness to pressure you into accepting behavior that should never become normal. When someone hurts you, the natural reaction is often to hold on to the pain. You replay the conversation, you remember the betrayal, you imagine what you should have said, you wonder why they treated you that way. Your mind continues fighting a battle that has already happened. Forgiveness can help you step away from that internal battle. It can mean that you no longer allow another person's actions to control your emotional state. But forgiving does not mean forgetting the lesson. If you touch something hot and get burned, you do not need to hate the fire. But you also do not need to touch it again. The pain taught you something. In the same way, when someone repeatedly violates your trust, you can release the anger while remembering what their behavior taught you. This is where wisdom begins. A person may say, if you really forgive me, you will trust me again. But trust does not come from an apology. Trust comes from consistent behavior over time. An apology may open the possibility of change, but only actions can demonstrate that change. If someone genuinely regrets what they did, they will understand why your trust cannot return immediately. They will not demand instant access to your life simply because they said sorry. Think about a door. Forgiveness may mean that you stop standing behind the door with anger in your heart, but that does not mean you have to open the door and invite the same person inside. The door can remain closed while your heart becomes peaceful. This is not punishment, it is discernment. There is also a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. Reconciliation requires two people. It requires honesty, accountability, changed behavior, and a willingness to rebuild what was damaged. Forgiveness, however, can happen within one person. You can decide that you no longer want to carry hatred even when the other person never apologizes. That is powerful because it means your peace is no longer dependent on someone else's behavior. You do not need them to understand your pain before you begin healing. You do not need them to admit that they were wrong before you choose peace. You do not need an apology before you decide that you will no longer allow resentment to consume your mind. But there is another danger: forgiving too quickly because you are afraid of losing someone. Sometimes we say, I forgive you, when what we really mean is, please don't leave me. We accept another apology because loneliness feels more painful than disrespect. We ignore another warning sign because we want to believe the relationship can return to what it once was. But you must learn to separate love from attachment. You can love someone and still recognize that they are unhealthy for your life. You can care about someone and still create distance. You can remember the beautiful moments without denying the painful ones. A person's good qualities do not erase their harmful behavior. This does not mean you should judge someone forever because of one imperfect moment. People deserve room to grow, but growth must be visible. If someone repeatedly says they have changed while continuing to behave exactly as before, believe the pattern rather than the promise. Your boundaries are not walls designed to keep everyone out. They are doors that teach people how to approach you. A healthy person may respect your boundary even if they disagree with it. An unhealthy person may become angry because your boundary prevents them from getting what they want. Pay attention to that reaction. Sometimes the clearest information about a person appears when you say no. If they respect your no, there is room for mutual respect. If they punish you for saying no, guilt you for saying no, or repeatedly cross the boundary you established, you have learned something valuable, and you do not have to keep explaining the same boundary forever. There comes a point where explanation becomes exhaustion. You have already spoken, now your action must speak for you. Distance can be an act of wisdom. Silence can be an act of self-control. Walking away can be an act of courage. None of these require hatred. In fact, the most powerful form of forgiveness may be completely quiet. You stop checking what they are doing. You stop waiting for them to regret losing you. You stop imagining revenge. You stop needing them to understand your value. You simply continue your life. This is true freedom, when the person who hurt you no longer occupies the center of your mind. Remember, forgiveness should make you lighter, not more vulnerable to repeated harm. If forgiving someone repeatedly means placing yourself in the same situation repeatedly, then you may have misunderstood what forgiveness is asking from you. Forgiveness can release the past. Boundaries protect the future. And wisdom is knowing that you can practice both at the same time. You can have peace in your heart while maintaining distance with your actions. You can wish someone well while choosing not to walk beside them. You can let go of anger without giving away your self-respect. The goal is not to become cold. The goal is to become clear. Because when you understand that forgiveness does not require access, you stop fearing the idea of letting people go. You realize that closing a door does not always mean you are full of hatred. Sometimes it simply means you have finally learned what belongs outside your life. And when that understanding settles within you, forgiveness becomes something much deeper than saying, "I forgive you." It becomes saying, "I release what happened, I keep the lesson, and I choose not to repeat the same pain." There is a quiet strength in kindness, but there is also a danger when kindness has no boundaries. Many people are taught that being a good person means always saying yes, always forgiving, always helping, and always giving another chance. But if you are constantly giving while receiving disrespect in return, eventually your kindness stops being a gift and becomes a sacrifice of yourself.
You must understand this clearly. Being kind does not mean being available to everyone.
A kind heart is not a weak heart. In fact, it often takes greater strength to remain compassionate in a world that gives you reasons to become bitter. But true kindness must be guided by wisdom. Without wisdom, you may continue opening the same door to people who have already shown you that they do not respect what is inside. Think about how often people take advantage of the person who is always willing to understand. You forgive because you know everyone makes mistakes. You help because you remember what it feels like to struggle. You remain patient because you do not want to hurt anyone. You give another opportunity because you believe people can change. These qualities are beautiful, but there comes a point when you must ask yourself, am I helping this person grow, or am I helping them continue the behavior? There is a difference. If someone knows that every betrayal will be forgiven without consequences, they may have no reason to change. If someone knows that every lie will be accepted, they may continue lying. If someone knows that every boundary can be crossed and you will still remain available, your kindness may unintentionally teach them that your limits are meaningless. This is why kindness needs a boundary. A boundary does not make you cruel. Saying no does not make you selfish. Walking away does not make you heartless. Protecting your peace does not mean that you have stopped caring. It means you have finally included yourself among the people you care about. Many people spend years protecting everyone else's feelings while destroying their own peace. They worry about disappointing others, but they do not notice how often others disappoint them. They are afraid of appearing rude, but they tolerate behavior that is deeply disrespectful. They keep saying, "It's okay," even when everything inside them is saying, "This is not okay anymore." You do not have to keep pretending. There is a difference between compassion and self-abandonment. Compassion says, "I understand that you are struggling." Self-abandonment says, "Because you are struggling, I must allow you to hurt me." Compassion says, "I forgive what happened." Self-abandonment says, "You can do it again." Compassion says, "I wish you well." Self-abandonment says, "I must remain close to you." These are not the same. Sometimes the strongest sentence you can say is simply, "No." No, I will not accept being spoken to this way. No, I will not continue a relationship built on disrespect. No, I will not keep proving my loyalty to someone who repeatedly betrays my trust. No, I will not sacrifice my peace just because you are uncomfortable with my boundaries. Notice what happens when you begin saying no. The people who genuinely respect you may accept your decision, even if they do not like it. But the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries may suddenly accuse you of changing. And perhaps you have changed. Perhaps you have become more aware. Perhaps you have finally realized that your time, energy, attention, and emotional strength are limited resources. You cannot pour from an empty vessel forever. Every time you give your attention to unnecessary conflict, you have less attention available for your own growth. Every time you allow someone to manipulate you, you spend energy that could have been invested in your future. Every time you repeatedly rescue someone from consequences they created themselves, you may prevent them from learning responsibility. Sometimes allowing someone to experience the result of their choices is more compassionate than constantly saving them. You must also learn not to confuse being needed with being valued. Some people only appreciate you when you are useful to them. They call when they need help. They remember you when they want something. They disappear when you need support. If you continue giving to such people simply because you want to feel important in their lives, eventually you may realize that they were not loving your presence. They were benefiting from your availability. That realization can hurt, but pain can become clarity. You do not need to become suspicious of everyone. You do not need to stop helping people. You do not need to become cold or distant. Instead, become selective. Give, but observe. Love, but maintain your identity. Forgive, but remember the lesson. Help, but do not destroy yourself. Trust, but allow trust to be earned. And most importantly, never use kindness as an excuse to remain in an environment that continually damages your dignity. A strong person does not need to announce every boundary. They simply live by it. They do not argue endlessly with people who disrespect them. They do not chase those who repeatedly walk away. They do not beg someone to appreciate their value. They quietly adjust their distance. This is a form of self-mastery. When you stop needing everyone to understand you, you become free. When you stop needing everyone to approve of your boundaries, you become stronger. When you stop believing that being kind means tolerating everything, you begin to understand what real compassion looks like. Real kindness includes kindness toward yourself, because your life is also your responsibility. Your peace is your responsibility. Your time is your responsibility. Your energy is your responsibility. And no one else can protect these things for you. So do not be ashamed of your soft heart. Protect it. Do not destroy your kindness because someone misused it. Refine it with wisdom. Do not become cruel because you were once exploited. Become discerning. The goal is not to build a heart that nobody can reach. The goal is to build a heart that knows who deserves to enter. When kindness is combined with boundaries, it becomes strength. When compassion is combined with discernment, it becomes wisdom. And when you learn to give without abandoning yourself, you discover that you never needed to become harder. You simply needed to become clearer about where your kindness belongs. There is a moment in life when you realize that you no longer need to fight every battle. You no longer need to prove who is right. You no longer need to make someone understand how deeply they hurt you. You simply become quiet, step back, and continue walking. This is not weakness. This is one of the deepest forms of strength. When someone has betrayed you, humiliated you, manipulated you, or repeatedly crossed your boundaries, your first instinct may be to make them feel the same pain. You may imagine the perfect response. You may want them to regret losing you. You may want them to understand what they did. But ask yourself, if you spend your days thinking about how to hurt someone who hurt you, have you really escaped them? Their actions may have wounded you once. Revenge allows those actions to occupy your mind again and again. This is why walking away can be more powerful than revenge. Walking away does not mean that what happened was acceptable. It does not mean you are pretending nothing happened. It means you have decided that your future deserves more attention than your past. There are people who expect you to fight with them. They expect emotional reactions. They expect long explanations, arguments, accusations, and endless conversations. When you remain calm and create distance instead, they may become confused. They may ask why you have changed. They may suddenly become interested in getting your attention again. But you do not have to respond to every invitation back into chaos. Sometimes silence is not a lack of words. Sometimes silence is clarity. You have already explained yourself. You have already expressed your feelings. You have already given opportunities. Now your actions must communicate what your words could not. If someone repeatedly disrespects you, you do not need to convince them that respect matters. If someone repeatedly lies, you do not need to conduct an investigation every time. If someone constantly crosses your boundaries, you do not need to create 100 new explanations. You can simply reduce your access. This is where self-mastery becomes important. The world will constantly give you reasons to react. Someone will criticize you. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will betray you. Someone will speak about you behind your back. Someone may even try to provoke you because they know exactly which words will trigger your emotions. But your strength is not measured by how quickly you respond. Your strength is measured by your ability to choose your response. When anger rises, pause. When revenge enters your mind, pause. When you feel the need to prove yourself, pause. Ask yourself, will this action bring me closer to the person I want to become? If the answer is no, then do not give your energy to it. You do not need to become the same kind of person who hurt you in order to defeat them. If someone treated you with cruelty and you become cruel in return, they have influenced your character more than you realize. Your victory is not making them suffer. Your victory is refusing to become someone you do not respect. There is also great freedom in letting go of the need for an apology. Of course, a sincere apology can bring healing. But if your peace depends entirely on another person admitting their wrongdoing, then you have handed them control over your healing. Some people will never apologize. Some will rewrite the story. Some will blame you. Some will tell others that you were the problem. You cannot control the story they tell, but you can control the story you continue living. You can say, "This happened. It hurt me. I learned from it, and I will not allow it to define the rest of my life." That is enough. Do not spend years waiting for someone to realize what they lost. Do not monitor their life to see whether they are suffering. Do not compare their progress with yours. Do not keep checking whether they regret their decisions. Every moment you spend watching them is a moment you are not fully present in your own life. Turn your attention back toward yourself. Build your discipline, improve your character, protect your peace, strengthen your relationships with people who genuinely respect you. Work toward the future you once postponed because you were emotionally trapped in the past. This is how you truly move forward. And moving forward does not mean that you will never remember what happened. You may remember it. You may even feel pain when you think about it. Healing does not erase memory. It changes the power that memory has over you. One day, you will remember the situation without feeling the same need to react. That is progress. One day, you will hear their name without feeling anger. That is freedom. One day, you will realize that you no longer need them to understand your value. That is self-respect. But do not confuse walking away with running away. Running away is often driven by fear. Walking away can be driven by awareness. You know what you are leaving. You know why you are leaving. And you know that remaining would cost you more than leaving. Sometimes you must leave a friendship. Sometimes you must leave a relationship. Sometimes you must leave an environment. Sometimes you must simply leave an old version of yourself behind. The version that accepted less because it was afraid of being alone. Being alone for a period of time is not necessarily loneliness. Sometimes solitude gives you the space to hear your own thoughts again. When you stop chasing people who do not value you, you create room for people who do. When you stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you, you create peace. When you stop seeking revenge, you recover your energy. And when you stop regretting the lesson, you begin appreciating the person you became because of it. So if someone has hurt you deeply, do not ask yourself only, how can I make them regret what they did? Ask a better question. What kind of person will I become after this? Will you become bitter or wiser? Will you become suspicious of everyone or more discerning? Will you close your heart or will you learn to protect it? Will you carry their behavior into every future relationship or will you leave their behavior where it belongs, in the past? You cannot always choose what people do to you, but you can choose what you do with what happened. And sometimes the most powerful response is not revenge, confrontation, or another explanation. It is peace. It is distance. It is growth. It is waking up one morning and realizing that the person who once occupied so much space in your mind has become only a lesson you carry quietly. You do not hate them. You do not chase them. You do not need them. You simply continue. And there is a profound strength in being able to walk away with your dignity intact, your heart free from revenge, and your eyes focused on the life that is still waiting for you. Before you walk away from this message, remember one thing. Forgiveness should free you, not return you to the same pain. Not everyone who hurts you deserves another opportunity to hurt you. Not every apology deserves immediate trust. And not every person who leaves your life needs to be replaced. Sometimes the greatest lesson is learning that you can forgive without forgetting, love without chasing, and walk away without hatred. If someone repeatedly betrays your trust, humiliates you, manipulates your kindness, refuses responsibility, or ignores your boundaries, do not keep sacrificing your peace just to prove that you have a good heart. A good heart also knows when to protect itself. You do not need revenge. You do not need to make them suffer. You do not need to prove that they were wrong. Your growth is enough. Your peace is enough. Your distance is enough. And perhaps one day you will look back and realize that losing certain people was not the end of your story. It was the moment you finally began choosing yourself. So before you forgive someone and open the door again, ask yourself one final question. Has this person truly changed, or have I simply become tired of being angry? Because there is a difference between peace and surrender. Choose peace, choose wisdom, choose boundaries, and most importantly, choose the version of yourself that no longer accepts what once destroyed your inner peace. If this message spoke to something you have experienced, take a moment to reflect, not on who hurt you, but on what that experience taught you. And if you found value in this video, support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who may need this message today. Thank you for spending these moments with us here on the wisdom of Shaolin. Keep your mind calm, keep your boundaries strong, and keep walking forward. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can say to someone who hurt you is nothing at all. And the strongest thing you can do is become a person they can no longer disturb. Until the next video, stay disciplined, stay aware, and protect your peace.